of the swamp. Now, here for reaction. Former Republican Senator Scott Brown, along with the founder of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, Steve Moore, and Executive Director of the Heritage Foundation, Jessica Anderson. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I think that Rand might be being a little, coy in asking the question if there's any real difference, Steve Moore, between the parties. I mean, there is a uniparty. There is an interest in the mentality and the cultural sentiment of Washington. Would you agree that, in fact, I sense that this argument between conservatives and Republicans is really just part of the theater, that there's one interest, and that is growing government, which requires, of course, a growing contempt for the American people?
Great to be with you, Tammy. Merry Christmas. I just want to correct you on one thing you said when you said there's not money for border enforcement. Actually, there is money for border enforcement, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just not to protect our border. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Great point.
So it's almost laughable, the waste in this budget. And my friends at Heritage have just literally scores and scores of pages of these programs. I think this is a total political disaster for the Republicans, Tammy, because they're in on this. You know, I've been on the show many times blaming, Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Schumer and Biden for their overspending, and they did. They overspent by $4 trillion. But this is one that is a bipartisan heist where you had more than 24 Republican senators vote with the Democrats to pass this. And the reason they did, Tammy, is they wanted the pork barrel spending for their districts.
And a great reference here to the Heritage Foundation. So let's go to Jessica here for a second, because this is not new for the American people. They said we'd get back to normal. This is exactly normal, right? This kind of spending. This is how Obamacare was passed. I understand the Republicans don't necessarily vote for something, or they vote to get it out of committee, but then all vote against it. And of course, that wasn't the case with the Omnibus when it comes to the Senate. The Senate knew, though, that the Republicans would have the House next year. They didn't seem to care about that. What do you think, Jessica, this means when it comes to what the agenda of the Republicans are and what the next 2 years is going to look like?
Well, the entire process that actually put together this deal has been completely fractured and is representative of how broken Washington is. So many people in back rooms throughout the last 6 months were writing this bill. But you know who wasn't looking at it? The American people, rank and file members of Congress. We only had less than 2 days to read it, to understand what was in it, and then to pass it. And so the process is a problem. But then, as Steve mentioned, the actual policies that are in this package is a huge problem for the American people. Over 7,200 individual earmarks totaling over $15 billion for the American taxpayer are packed into this Omni bill. And so what does that mean for us? It means that our taxpayer dollars are going to fund LGBTQ centers in New York and LA, climate initiatives, non-gender conforming housing projects, a Michelle Obama hiking trail for $3.5 million in Georgia. That is not what our American tax dollars should be going for. And it's a shame that Congress jammed this through right before Christmas.
Scott Brown, we don't. I suppose if a town wants a gay and lesbian museum, that's great. Then have that town fund that, right? I do a GoFundMe as far as I'm concerned. Right now, we've got Americans doing 2 and 3 gig kind of jobs to pay the rent and to taking a secondary job so that they can get enough gas to be able to go to their normal job. And we see this vomitous spending of tax dollars that we also don't have. It almost seems like a deliberate, there's a word I want to use, but I can't because it's television. It's like a big foam finger hand to the American people in a way because of, that we vote sometimes against their wishes. What is feeding this mania in Washington?
Well, first of all, I obviously was there. I saw it firsthand. It's not new. It's not a surprise. Remember, Senator Bunning had the very same type of documentation that Rand Paul put out about the tremendous waste. And before we ask the taxpayers for more money, we should get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse and all these stupid little things that we read about. We just kind of scratch our head and go, "What? Shooting cocaine into puppies? You kidding me?"
It's insane.
I mean, that seems criminal to me, being an animal lover. But more importantly, what it really shows me is that Mitch McConnell doesn't have a whole lot of faith in obviously, I don't think he's going to get it, but McCarthy, because had they just did a short-term continuing resolution, they would have had a better shot to get a better budget. So it shows me that McConnell is more likely and feels better to work with Schumer and the Liberal Democrats than work with his own party. And that's very sad, because the American people sent the House members to get a handle on our fiscal responsibility issues, because the inflation is out of control. The heating oil is still out of control. I mean, I went to today again to get some eggs. $1.82 like 6 months ago is $5.89. And people, and they're in Washington just continuing to spend and spend and spend. So listen, people need to get involved. Enough. Are we done already with this stuff? This is like the last Christmas, as you said, the you know what finger saying, you know what, hey, we're here, too bad. You just go and just kind of live your boring lives, and, you know, come on, we need to stand up and start working to rectify all
if they're
these problems.
They're forgetting what got this country Trump. This is exactly the behavior. Yep. And it's as though now they're standing on the hill saying, we won, we got you, and we got him, and look, we're now going to do this again. The American people they're going to vote other people in. And, you know, we all have an interest in the stability of this country. And this just doesn't seem to be the way to do it. Scott, Steve, and Jessica, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Now, coming up.